the best center backs are converted central midfielders that play center back. Obviously, because that was my
bias.
Honestly, I just think seeing the game as a center back is much easier than as a midfielder. So
Facts.
yeah, so that kind of helped me. And on top of that, I had been playing in midfield, so I was more aggressive in interceptions and dribbling, all that. Do you know Ousmane Jabang? He was coming in as a 6 to the club, and Tony was like, "That guy right there is taking your spot next year." I represent Atlanta much more.
You riding dirty bird.
Yeah. I try my best. I have a sweet tooth, but I try my best to.
What? Hey, you a gummy guy? You a chocolate guy?
Everything guy.
You're in everything.
I love baking. I bring in. Bring in desserts all the time, but I gotta chill with eating it myself. I just try to give it out to everyone else.
This is New Ground with Allen Hopkins Jr. Let's go. And Jalil Anibaba.
We are back and we are better. The best show on your soccer radio, your favorite player's favorite show. Allen Hopkins Jr., Jalil Anibaba, your gracious host here at the home, the epicenter of melanin-rich conversations about life, soccer, footy. This is New Ground on Sirius XM FC channel 157. So glad you could join us. As always, Allen Jalil here. Jalil, how you living this week?
Come on, bruh. You ask me every single week how I'm living this week. If it's
Very
Thursday
consistent.
night, you know that the
is.
vibes are up. If it's Ja and Allen, you know that the vibes are up. It's starting to get it's well past a rhetorical question at this point in time. What it is I know all of y'all are either in the whip driving to wherever you need to drive, listening to New Ground on Sirius XM FC. Or you're just cooling on the couch, making sure you get your soccer content in one of the best places to do it. Or you are wherever it is that you consume one of the best shows on one of the best platforms that has one of the best vibes. So if that's what we're talking about on a Thursday night, you know the vibes are up. I'm just very happy that each and every one of y'all have chosen to tune in with us.
This is a fun time of year in the sense that the weather gets nice just about everywhere. Spring starts springing. And so much of my life is the soundtrack of the game, but it's also sort of the seasonal aspects of the game, right? And now you come out of the winter and the training gear changes, right? You can start to wear, like, maybe if you got a cool coaching staff, you can wear the sleeveless. You can start to get the sunscreen on. It gets to be a lot of fun under the sun, and it's a really fun time of year. And this is when everything really kicks into gear. And one of the things that is very clear in season 30 of Major League Soccer is how serious of a business this is. As much as it's a game, as much as we appreciate being able to be a part of it. But, at the end of the day, it's about people. And you and I have talked a lot about this, whether it be Pro-Rel and USL and the American Enterprise or the U.S. men's national team. And even here, when really, really good people have to find a difficult moment where they have to transition. And I sent Peter Vermes a note, and it's a quote that I say often. And sometimes if I'm not in the right space, I'll butcher it. But this one I have clarity on. And I just simply sent him a note saying not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. And it's just remarkable that Peter quietly was the 4th longest tenured club manager in the world. In the world. And in 2009, we were on iPhone 3 when he took over SKC. And now we're pushing 2009. And now Diego Simeone now is the 4th longest tenured manager in global football. And it wasn't surprising, the news, considering just the low ebb that Sporting Kansas City had been in the last couple of years. It just seemed like they just didn't hit on the right things at the right time in terms of players. And obviously Peter has been someone who has had the ability to do the shopping, do the cooking, and decide the menu in terms of his role as general manager and sporting director and head coach and all the different titles he's had over time. So I'm curious, as someone who actually knows this organization, knows this man very well, your thoughts on Peter Vermes and really the end of an era in Major League Soccer, as he's certainly one of the all-time best to ever do it in our league.
I think the end of this era in Sporting Kansas City history, as far as we all know it, is a time for all of us to reflect. Full stop, period. Because Peter is a manager, is a player, is a figurehead, is a leader, is an intellect, and a student of this game that has inspired so many of us. Just to be honest with you, for me, a player who played for him, I grew immensely in the 2015 season where I was on the team. But Peter is also the type of person that will just tell you straight up how it is, and he doesn't sugarcoat things. He was very upfront with me in the sense that they were looking to try to draft me right out of college, and it didn't end up working out. So when they had the opportunity to bring me into the organization, what was it, 4 or 5 seasons later?
They had to come get you. They had to trade up to get you, Shedeur Sanders. You better go get my boy. You weren't going to be sticking around waiting for Peter to. Back in them days, they didn't have a high draft pick because they were really good teams. So you weren't going to be lasting too long on anyone's draft board.
They actually did, though. Here's the interesting thing. So I went number 9 overall to Chicago, and they had the 10th. Yeah, and they had the 10th pick that year. And CJ Sapong went to Sporting Kansas City number 10. So it worked out exactly how it was supposed to work out.
That's how it went down.
Because Sporting Kansas City was a perfect place for CJ to start, fortify, and jet fuel skyrocket his career. And Sporting Kansas City was a perfect place for me to play after I had a bit of experience underneath my belt. So it all works out exactly how it's supposed to work out. But when you talk about Peter Vermes, to play for him, at least in the times that I played for him, you had to be mentally tough. You had to be a team player. You had to be a student of the game. You had to push yourself beyond what you felt was your potential. But then when you did so, you felt very, very good, and you were rewarded because you knew that if you could succeed under Peter, you could succeed anywhere in the league.
Yep.
And
that's right.
Listening to Morning Footy this week, it was excellent how Nate Bukaty and Tony Miola, the homies, broke it down, because there are very few people in this ecosystem that can speak on what it means, what the end of this era means, other than those two. There are a few others, but those two can speak on it extremely well. Nate Bukaty being the play-by-play broadcaster for Sporting for years on end before the Apple deal, and Tony Miola became a legend in sport in Kansas City as far as his club days are concerned, right? Yep. They talked about how many things Peter has done to push the game forward beyond his managerial seat on the touchline. And I just have to give a huge shout out to Peter, because, I think when we talk about where we want the game to continue to grow to, where we want it to grow to, whether it's the MLS or the U.S. men's national team, we have to continue to try our best to adopt certain growth mindsets that Peter has led us to understand you have to have in order to do anything at an extremely high level.
I have always been appreciative of Peter on 3 different fronts. First, when I was an up-and-coming coach, and under the wing, deep down in the tree of under Siggy Schmidt, Peter was someone that would show love and respect because he knew you were in the game and you were living that life. And, he was New Jersey tough and honest, and he is, I should say, as a manager, and someone who represented the U.S. at the highest level. But I know personally, when I was starting to transition as an executive, he was very supportive, along with Greg Berhalter and a couple other folks, in terms of Bob Bradley, like really looking at my work and my deliverables and fine tuning them. He was always there, a text, a call away. And this game, Jalil, is so interesting because, Peter has receipts in this game, and we're not going to go through all the accolades. He is a Hall of Famer as well. But, he was a Metro star, not even, we're talking about an organization technically that doesn't exist. And he was traded to the Rapids for the new interim coach for Sporting Kansas City, Kerry Zavanian. That is the wild, wild way that this game is connected, and how much we are very much, 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon when it comes to this stuff. So we wish Peter well. This is a guy, married his high school sweetheart and a Rutgers guy, and made it to a World Cup in the old school Adidas kits, way back in the way in 1990, and 4 major trophies and so many accolades, and much respect to him. And now that really helps to turn the page. And this organization that very well, we talked about your experience there. Where do they go from here? What is next for Sporting Kansas City? They are one of those teams that quietly, when they are better and when they're good, the league is very good as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The last thing that I'll say before I get to your question, just on Peter himself, I spoke to him this week, and one thing that I've always admired about him and our relationship is that no matter where I've been in my career and what phase I'm in, Peter will always tap in, and we always tap in with each other. And so for people like that, it helps me to understand, no matter how busy I am, it's very important to make sure that you still stay connected with people.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Still stay connected with people. The moment I announced my retirement, I swear to you, Peter hit me within a half an hour. And so for me, it was a foregone conclusion that, okay, as soon as I saw the news, I was going to hit Peter. I wasn't going to shy away from the moment or anything like that.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, one thing that people need to always understand about Peter, as wild and as intense as he always looked on the sideline from the outside looking in, he was a man of conduct. He was a man of making
Proper
sure that you
football
do
man.
things the right way.
That's right.
And to conduct yourself in a way that commands respect. And
That's right.
that is what I have always resonated with when it comes to Peter, because that's how I was raised.
He was very proud of his Hungarian roots and his family, and he always wanted to do right by his parents. And that's something that I know both you and I really resonates with, both of us on that.
Facts. So as far as where does Sporting Kansas City go from here, that's the $1 million question, or multi-million-dollar question for them, quite literally and figuratively. But I like the fact that Kerry Zavagnin, who's also a former Tar Heel, by the way, shout out Kerry, is in the managerial seat because he's been in the club for so long. He understands what the ethos of the community, the market, the style of play that resonates with the fans. Someone that has been in an organization for that long as the number 2, they deserve a crack at it. And
that's true.
So we will see where things go under Kerry. We'll analyze how it all works, but I hope Sporting Kansas City is able to turn things around, because I completely agree with you that when Sporting Kansas City is firing on all cylinders, it's typically synonymous with the league growing and ascending. So we'll see. I don't want to speak too prematurely on what is next for Sporting, because that's for them to figure out, and I want to give them the respect to do it on their own terms.
Well, you always are quick to make fun of the number of spins I have around the sun and the grays in the beard. But for me, my MLS, if you will, is when Chicago, Kansas City, and Dallas were good. And I appreciate that era when those clubs are good, holding down that sort of part of the country. Then Columbus sort of bled in. You have Cincinnati. Ideally, in my world, sort of Wakanda light, everyone is good, obviously, but I think you need to have that spine and have these anchor organizations and teams with stars and so many great players, so many great players. And the one thing I'll say on SKC, when I think about pros who've played in this league, a lot of them have come out of Kansas City under Peter Vermes. You and I were talking about Graham Zusi. We talked about Beasler. You were there. We talked about Ike Opara, Kerry Zavanian. Chris Klein did some time there. Chris Hinder.
Roger,
Come on.
Josh Wolf,
Go for
Chance
it.
Myers, Seth
Mm-hmm.
Sinovic,
Mm-hmm.
Benny Philhaber,
Yep.
Tim Melia,
Yep.
Jimmy Conrad. Come on, man. You want me to keep you want me to keep going? Jake Peterson. When you played for Peter, you had to be a top
that's
pro.
just what
And
it
how
is.
you conducted yourself. That was the Dom Dwyer. That's just what it was. So standards were undeniably, I don't even want to say risen. They were ratcheted up to an extremely high level, all the way from the stadium build, the locker room. The locker room, the film room, all this stuff was like next level. No one was doing these types of things. And now you have training facilities and stadiums that mirror what Kansas City did in 2011.
Yep. But I spent a lot of time there on site visits there with the national team. Jurgen loved playing there, and the Cauldron and all the supporters groups always brought it. And we had a couple of great results there. And you're right, they were the first ones kind of incorporated that whole vibe, if you will, in terms of the stadium vibe, the stadium club, the proximity to the players. All that stuff was really, really cool. Before we turn the page and get ready for our guests, we're really excited to have George Campbell joining us to cover new ground on this week. His club, Montreal, Laurent Courtois, was the first manager to be let go. Now we have Sporting Kansas City calling time on Peter Vermes. If we look at the form guide, and this is something you and I talk about quite often in terms of who's doing really well, Miami, Vancouver, Philadelphia, Austin, and Columbus, and San Diego, I think all deserve a shout out there, 1 through 6. Chicago's having a great start. Same with Minnesota. Is there anyone, when you think about teams that have not quite hit the gear yet, minus Toronto? Robin Fraser just got there, but New England just got their first win of the season. DC just 1 win so far in their 6 trials. Do you think the coaching carousel has more spins on it, or do you think some folks are still in a place where their project is still in front of them to do good things?
Yeah, I mean, we gonna see. Footy is synonymous with life. It'll surprise you in ways that you don't even know. Sometimes you're saying, okay, this is the trend, X, Y, and Z is gonna happen, and then it turns out to be B, C through F.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily know. But what I'm looking at though is, if you're talking about the supporter shield race, if you look at clubs that are 22 to 30, so you're Salt Lake all the way down to Sporting Kansas City.
Yep.
The teams that are like truly worrying me are DC and New England.
Yeah.
Because DC, I'm not seeing too many signs of improvement. And I love Troy Lesesne. I hope things get better for them, because I want to see him succeed. But I don't see too much getting better there in terms of this season. So they need to turn things around very quickly. The same in New England. This is one of my former clubs. I love New England. I love the market. I love the club. I played for Caleb Porter, of course, and their entire staff. And I want to see them turn this thing around. But it's not really getting better. So for me, time is ticking, and they need to turn things around, very quickly. They know that. They understand that. Both those two clubs are focused on doing whatever they can do to make sure that we're not talking about them in this light. Now, when you look at the rest of the teams that are in 22 through 30, I'm not worried about Seattle. I'm actually not even worried about Houston so much either.
Same.
And the rest of the clubs that are in that light, Salt Lake, for me, they'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think the carousel, while it seems to be going warp speed right now to the moon, I think it's actually going to be more staccato in terms of how it moves for the rest of the season. The one quick bow I'll put on those two teams, DC and New England, New England has only given up 6 goals in 5 matches. That's not a bad return defensively. On the other hand, DC's given up 11 in their contests, and they seem to not be able to sort of button things up with just the one clean sheet so far on the campaign. So the trends inside the trends, we'll see how that plays out. But as Jalil always says, footy gonna let us know. And speaking of letting us know, coming up on the other side of the break, a player that we are both excited to be joining us this week. He is up, he is coming, he's been there and done that, and he's still a young man. We're talking about CF Montreal and newly capped U.S. men's national team defender George Campbell. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to New Ground on Sirius XM FC. Jalil, very excited for this next guest coming by to join us. He has been a rising star in Major League Soccer, early days with Atlanta United, now one of the key defenders for CF Montreal. George's story is a great one, dedication, adaptation. He has a unique perspective, not only on the sport, but certainly on how this fits into who he is on and off the field. And he's fresh, Jalil, off his team of the match day 6 appearance. Joining us to cover new ground on our show this week is George Campbell. George, welcome to the show. How you living this week?
Pleasure to be here, fellas. Everything is good, man. No complaints. Day in, day out training, you know me. So, yeah, it's been good. I'm chilling.
George, not the start to the season you'd hope for, but one of the things that I teased about you early on is just how adaptive you've been. What's it been like now? Third coach in the last 3 seasons for CF Montreal. What's been the messaging between the players about how you continue to put in the work, because there's still a lot of season left?
I haven't had a coach, 2 full seasons in a row. I mean, I've pretty much had a different coach every year of my career. So It's been for the past, 6 years, I guess. So it's been like that for me personally.
So you're used to it
entire time, and not in a way where I wanted my coach to leave. Like, I was perfectly fine with him. But that adaptability kind of, as how I was raised in general, on top of the fact that I had already been through, this process that clubs do all the time, kind of helps me. So I'm not as phased as it, or mentally I get, hate on myself about, oh, how's this coach want me to play this and that. I just try to play my game. As well, I've seen myself as a pretty good listener. So, whatever the coach wants, on top of, like, if I can mesh it with how I play is obviously best. But in terms of the team, I mean, the one we have now was the assistant coach for the first 5 games anyway, so we know kind of how he is. He's more of a defensive coach, so he talks with us defenders a lot. And I think it's more about just how we come together and know that pretty much the past few years for Montreal it's always been a young group who really wants to play on the ball and be a dominant team on the ball. So that part's not going to change. So it's really about kind of mixing the coach's ideology with talking amongst ourselves, meaning, like, look, we're a good team, we're a young team, and we just need to do our best to keep that identity amongst ourselves and, like, play on the ball, because that's honestly what I like, is having the ball, of course.
Right. And less defending
exactly.
to do.
And what every other team, I would hope, looks at us like, yeah, this team has the ball, they're hard to play against because they're dominant with the ball. So yeah, I think, it'll be a good season once we pick it up, and we had a really good game last game, so I think it's only up from here.
You've become kind of king of adapting and doing what you need to do to not only survive but to excel. And I really love how things have played out for you in the last 2 to 3 years. The best center backs are converted central midfielders that play center back. Obviously, because that was my
bias.
But for real though, in all seriousness though, George, my pops, he's from Nigeria, and he loves footy more than a lot of things in life. And he always trained me and my brothers and any players that he has either coached or continues to coach to be total footballers. You have to be able to defend. You have to be able to attack. You have to be good in the air. You have to have sauce, rhythm, and flair with the way that you play. And there is literally no position on the pitch that can teach you all those things other than central midfield. So when players are central midfielders in their developmental years and then they grow into or transition into whatever, you typically see them be more confident in what it is to embrace everything that a footballer has to embrace. Two-part question. Was it your decision to move backward, or was it the club's? And then two, what do you still rely on in the small or the younger version of yourself as a central midfielder, where you're now either representing the U.S. men's national team or Montreal?
Yeah. So, well, first, no, it was. I think we had an injury in. We went to a preseason tournament in Mexico. I think we had an injury at center back, and yeah, I think I just filled in for whoever was injured there. I think the second game it was, and yeah, I mean, after that, I just, like I was saying before, you just seeing the whole field just feels so much better, and I was like, wow, like I just felt like, the game was much easier back there when I moved.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would say now, like, I would say the part where just to take your space when you see it. Sometimes you don't try to, like, before a game, not thinking like I want to dribble past the whole team this game, but in the game you'll have these moments of instinct, basically, where you're like, okay, it might be risky, or maybe I should stay back, but I know I can make this play and maybe take some space, take some yards, and advance the ball with my team. So I would say that's one of the more fun and more common things I rely on, to just take my space and try to go for it as much as possible.
Did you know, George, that soccer was going to be a ticket for you to achieve your dreams and to do some amazing things? When did that become crystal in terms of an opportunity that was in front of you if you put in the time, the hard work, the dedication to match your talent?
Yeah, honestly, I would say compared to most people, like you see a ton of like 15, 16-year-old homegrowns these days. Like, I wouldn't even say it was at that point. It was probably like right before I signed. I signed on my 18th birthday. So honestly, when I was probably 17, that whole year I had been playing really well. Coming into Atlanta, I played at Georgia United before Atlanta United was even founded. And then obviously I had Tony Annan, who was later the Atlanta United sporting director, and he brought me with him to the 16s of Atlanta United. And honestly, I wasn't playing too much that year. I was playing midfield as well. So it wasn't until the next year, I want to say 2017, that I was playing at center back with the 17s, and I kind of blossomed that year. I was like taking a lot of steps. I felt much better on the ball, much more confident. Honestly, I just think seeing the game as a center back is much easier than as a midfielder. So
Facts.
yeah, so that kind of helped me. And on top of that, I had been playing in midfield, so I was more aggressive in interceptions and dribbling, all that. So yeah, I would say that year I played really well, and then I had an injury, but I was still planning on playing USL the next season because they saw, I had potential and I was doing good things with the academy. So I would say not until maybe I was 17 where I really started to take some steps and played really well with the second team at Late Night 2. And at that point, it was like visiting colleges and at the same time trying to play out the USL season and see where it takes me. But I would say in the middle of that season, or honestly, in the beginning of that season, I was like, yeah, like, I mean, I have a real shot if I keep this up. I felt like I was one of the best players in the 17's year, and then USL came and I was playing a lot of games with them. So yeah, I mean, I would say I was also graduating high school that year. So maybe like the very beginning of when I made my USL debut, that, February, March, when I was also negotiating with the team, that's when I was really like, this could actually become
This is going to happen.
It kind of happened overnight like that. Not literally, because I did put in a lot of work, but in terms of mentally, like, wow, this could actually happen. It just happened so fast. So yeah.
That's hella interesting for me because, Allen and I were often talking about the different pathways, and, working with the youth now, at least from my experience, is that like you'll have a lot of 14, 15, 16-year-olds that if they aren't with their national teams, or if they aren't, playing with the second team at 16 or whatever, I can sense this feeling of like they almost feel like they're failures already. So my question to you is, when you were going through your struggles in the academy in the 16s, before things really got popping with the 17s, where was your frame of mind? Were you still like, I'm a teenager, I'm trying to get it, I'm still trying to have fun and worrying about prom and all these things while I'm also being a player? Or were you like literally cracking your head every day trying to figure out how to be a pro?
Yeah, so yeah, it was somewhere in between there, because in, I want to say 16s, where I was saying I didn't play too much. I remember at the end of the year, Tony went to me and he was like basically like, look at those guys. Honestly, do you know Usman Jabang? He was coming in as a 6 to the club, and Tony was like, that guy right there is taking your spot next year. So you better basically lock in, because you're not playing good enough and you didn't play well this year. And I was like, that was one of the times in terms of academy days where I was like, okay, like I actually need to do much better and like pay attention to more details of training, all that. But yeah, and I would say that was a big step for me. And then we had a preseason tournament. That's when I switched to center back. And honestly, after that, it just kind of took off like a rocket, honestly, the way I was playing. And I think confidence, honestly, for any athlete does a world of good. And I was just more confident every game after that. And I think later that year I got like one of the academy best 11, and from that moment it was kind of like, I know that I had this capability, and I know that if I kind of hone it and work hard, I can kind of take that next step. So I would say that moment where Tony said like basically I need to lock in was kind of the basically went from just having a good time and go to training with my friends to like, okay, like let me take
this is a business, it's a job.
Even if it's not getting paid for it. Like I don't want to be that guy who just gets called out for being basically shit, you know? So that was actually a pretty big moment, I would say.
George, I'm curious when you talk about sort of how you have gotten used to change, right? When you think about stability, what does that look like for you in terms of what would be the foundation you may be looking for that you haven't had? Because it's interesting, you've always said you've been part of young groups. Well, you're both a young man and a veteran, right? Your date of birth, you're a young man, but you've been in the league for a minute now. So how are you focusing in on that leadership piece that's naturally going to fall your way? Because when the people look around the locker room, they're going to look for someone who's, one, been there and done that, two, has been in that situation before, and three, is actually a real contributor on the field. So what's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I like to do a little more in terms of the locker room and on the field, in terms of leadership, is helping not just the young guys, but the really young guys. Because I mean, I still consider myself young.
You are.
So yeah, like, there's a few homegrowns that we have, and guys like below 21, obviously that we have. Like I was saying, we have a really young team, so we have a few of those guys, and kind of giving like constructive criticism and pointers for those guys. I enjoy. Just in terms of, if it's how to use your body, or, when to come to the ball, when to go away, this kind of stuff. I feel like that's a part of the style of leadership that I like. Not much of, just screaming at the whole team when we're playing bad. That's not as much my style. Maybe I sign another contract at some other team and I become that person. But me personally, that's not who I am. I prefer the one-on-one constructive criticism to certain guys. I just feel like that it helps more. And obviously each team needs different types of leaders. So, we have those type of guys. We have guys who will call out everyone out loud or say things out loud to the team. But I prefer to be in, younger guys' ears a lot more, and how that's going to help them individually. And I'm personally going to help the team and help me when I have the ball, and how you're going to come for the ball, and how you're gonna help us build out of situations. So yeah, I mean, I would think in terms of on field and when it comes to the team, that's my style. I mean, in terms of off the field, I think the stability part is just kind of level in your head, and obviously these young guys who you see kind of go into training, training's done, go out. Sometimes you want to say something as a little joke just to get on them and see if they stay more often.
Right.
Sometimes not, but I think that part is more of, whatever works for you, and me,
That's right.
my fiance now has helped me a lot because obviously
How so?
she's like, she's like my best friend. So I talk to a lot of my teammates. Like for example, now tonight I'm going to one of my teammates' house for a little game night.
Right.
But no, like, yeah, of course she's like my best friend and she wanted to talk to the most. So I feel like that, as opposed to earlier, if I just have nothing to do and no fiance, I'm just wasting time. I feel like, but I feel like I can be more productive when she's around and I'm talking to her. So for me personally, again, that's something stability wise I have off the field now that I think levels my head a little bit more.
That is the lover boy, George Campbell, the defender at CF Montreal, joining us, and that's real talk, and I think that's an amazing thing. And to continue on that beat, Jalil and I talk a lot about the support that you need as a coach, player, executive during the season. And you mentioned you have a wonderful fiance that is your BFF, and you guys are going to ride off into the sunset, happily ever after. What's it like for you to, when I saw you last in Miami and at Corey Gibbs Invitational, Jalil and Corey and D-Row, we had such a great time there. And what's it like for you to be able to represent your country and how that reflects on the support your friends, your family, your fiance, your coaches? You mentioned Tony, who went on and now coaching college, South Carolina. Like, what's that like for a really intentional, mindful person like yourself to be able to be in a moment where you can acknowledge the blessing, but then also express the gratitude?
Yeah. I would say that. So the January camp or at least the moment where I knew I was going to play and make my debut was really special. I even remember telling my fiance and after the game, my parents, that was one of the first games in a really long time where I got the little jitters before and
Oh, okay.
a few of the shakes. So I was really excited to be in the moment and had a little nerves because obviously by now in MLS games, I get up for the game, no problem, of course. It's not as nerve wracking. It's more of like, an exciting moment because I really want to, show out every time.
Yep.
Not as much. I'm so nervous,
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that, and they all went to the game. My fiance, her mom, and my parents, they all went to the game, and just knowing that in those big moments that I know those people are going to be the first ones there means a lot, obviously. And obviously, like after the game, going out to dinner with them, talking about that kind of stuff. Those are honestly the moments I look forward to a lot, and even before games, maybe not now, but in the past, to try to ease my nerves before the games, I would think like I can get killed on social media if I have a bad game or make mistakes. But at the end of the day, if I do my best, and the people who love me are gonna still love me, and my friends are still gonna be my friends. So go out there and play my game, kind of. And that's kind of the mentality I've had for a while, and that's the mentality I try to keep, is just do my best, and nothing too bad is gonna happen, right?
But I always like to take it back at the beginning. Talk to us about, the genesis of your love for football. How did you get into the game? Where did it become, just more than something you did with the homies or, with the young guns in the area that you grew up in?
Yeah, so me and my family were growing up like outside Philadelphia. So I have two older brothers, and they both played soccer. I have cousins on my mom's side. 3 out of 4 of them played soccer, and I'm the youngest out of all 7 of them. So honestly, it was really just, that's a good question to ask them. What made them start? Because our parents didn't play, but I was kind of just following the cousins and the brothers in their steps. And honestly, it was a lot of playing in the backyard, and when we would go over play with them. And yeah, it was kind of like everyone started playing competitive, so I was just following suit, and and made something out of that. But we were always playing, you know, obviously we're playing soccer and basketball, all of us. I think all of us just gravitated towards soccer, and only one of my cousins ended up playing basketball in college. So yeah, it was just like a domino effect. Everyone played, and I was following them. So yeah, nothing too bad is gonna happen, right?
That's right. No, I mean, got to keep the main thing, George, right? And I think it's important, and I think you do a good job. And I often say, never take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. And that's just very important, that you continue to surround yourself, not insulate, but surround yourself with people who can lift you up, who can pour themselves into you in a way in which you can then give back as well. You've navigated the pathway of homegrown to first team in the 11 player. When you think about the younger George, and it touches on a little bit of what Jalil and you were talking about earlier about what you rely upon on the field as a player as you converted from midfield to center back, what does the younger George how does that still remain sort of fresh in your mind in terms of how recent that journey was? And what would you tell the younger version of yourself then that you rely upon right now?
It's a very, very deep, interesting question. Yeah, I'm really trying to think how I would answer that.
Please do.
I would say, in terms of the first part of your question, that I feel like I keep it pretty fresh in my mind, that in terms of how I got here, because I always try to think that the reason I got so much better and I developed so much is it happened so fast, but it wasn't because of like a random reason. Like,
right.
I had, in that moment, I do remember I was watching a lot more soccer. I was trying to be much more detailed. Like I was saying, when Tony said he lock it, I was much more detailed in training.
Yes.
I listened a lot more in terms of what coaches were telling me, and not just listening, but understanding what they were telling me, not just listening to the words. And so I try to take that, and from time to time I think about, like, wow, like, it was very, like, I wonder what I would be doing right now if that 1 year didn't happen, So I try to kind of, from time to time, I think about that, and I feel like,
does that motivate you to not lose that, what you've earned, what you've gained? Is it scarier to lose something that you have as opposed to never having it at all?
I would say depends what the topic is.
Right. Fair. Very
yeah,
fair.
yeah,
Well
exactly.
said.
So yeah,
Context matters.
Context does matter in this one. But for sure I would say, like, there are things that I look at, like, it's a similar topic, but kind of a different answer, is that, like, I look at things like, for example, going to, let's say, if an overseas option came upon, my desk or whatever, and either take a risk and go there and see how you like it, something new, way out of your comfort zone, or stay, in MLS and or resign with the club I'm at, whatever. Is that, like, I don't really want to. There's like a kind of a line where it's like comfort over just take a risk and see what happens.
Yep.
But I feel like at the end of the day, if the riskier thing doesn't happen, then you will kind of have that regret. And it's not the exact same analogy, but I think you would always rather have something to lose rather than just kind of be there and think, what if I had something? So yeah, I would say it's kind of like that. I kind of think of that time to time, that kind of analogy.
It's fascinating because, in just like seeing the game in front of you as a center back, you also got to see the modeling in front of you. What was it like, and what did you gain from your family and your older brothers who who are playing soccer and basketball, but here you are, you kind of took what you saw and obviously you've taken it and run and you've created a legacy for yourself in this game. So what do you think about your experiences growing up that really shape you now as you really continue heading in? You're not 24 yet, not for a couple more months,
Yep.
Still a young man. Like, you think about your trajectory and pathway, how much is that fueled by how you were raised?
Kind of like Jalil was saying, how
Mhm.
center mid, you get a bit of everything, a bit of every position on the field, and that kind of helps you with your development. It was kind of the same with having so many siblings and cousins that played soccer, is that you're, without even knowing as a kid, and obviously kids absorb much more knowledge and
Right.
skill and things, is that without even knowing, in that way, I'm basically practicing all types of techniques. I'm playing against older people,
Mhm.
so I have to be stronger. Obviously, we weren't pushing around that much, but you're
Yeah, you're a big boy. I feel like you've been big. I feel like you've been big the whole time, George.
not as big as them, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like in terms of that, growing up, you're practicing all types of skills on the backyard, and obviously once we started sprouting our own ways and playing at our own clubs, it's just me, not as much backyard, but that kind of stuff. Being the youngest, and you're always playing up, and you're always looking up to them, and you're always seeing their, like, I'm going to their games on weekends.
Mhm.
When I'm in elementary school, there, middle school or high school, I'm going to their games. Uh,
You couldn't wait till halftime, right? You were probably right
Concession
there
stand.
shooting on the goal, running out
Yeah,
there.
concession stand, and right on the field, 10 minutes. Exactly. So what one of my so my brother, my oldest brother, played mostly center back. He played for the Union's Academy, as well as my older brother. He played more of like a forward winger and then turned into a right back. My cousins played, I think, mostly winger or more attacking positions.
Mhm.
So yeah, like it was like a taste of everything. You get to see everything. You see a bunch of
Yeah.
different styles of builds, physically and technically, how they play. And so I feel like, what they say is the youngest is always the best. But it's
That's
the
right.
why they say that
That's
is because
true.
that the youngest will always absorb the most, and
That's right. That's
that's
right.
honestly
That's
why I
right.
feel like I'm here today, is because of all of them. And maybe they're not professional now, and they all do their own things, but I always felt
Mm.
to get to that next step, and why, like, part of the reason why I love doing it, and the reason why I push myself, is to kind of be like,
Mm.
not really in terms of proving them that I'm the best, but more of like making them proud, and like showing the
That's
family,
right.
like, someone's got to get there. We're all like, good. We're all good
Yeah.
players, and
We're all gonna eat. Yeah, you're representing everyone, like Campbell, like, yeah, you're carrying the flag for everyone. I am curious. You are, in so many ways, a son of the Northeast in Chester, in Pennsylvania, and a son of the South in Atlanta. So, do you rock Eagles hard? Like, where's your sports fandom in other sports? Is the Philly stuff, is that in your
it's
blood? And what's that like for you as well? Kind of being around Atlanta and being around all the franchises down there as well.
I represent Atlanta much more.
There you go. There you go.
In terms of other sports, I don't watch too much. For example, Falcons or Hawks, Eagles,
Right.
whatever. Um,
Right.
but if I did have to pick, for sure, I'd rep Atlanta more.
You riding Dirty Bird.
Yeah, yeah. I
Right.
just repping them a little more. I feel like my youth development and
Mhm.
becoming boy to man was more Atlanta than outside of Philadelphia. So I
Yeah.
just, in that way, more of my memories, I feel like, are now in Atlanta. So in that way, I really do represent. I feel like I resonate with Atlanta much more.
Yeah, it feels like no matter where you would have ended up, if whether you'd have been a part of the union setup, of course, it's worked out very well for you in Atlanta that you were going to be on this pathway no matter what. And it's just so exciting to see the work that you put in, and nothing happens by accident. And you know this, but you've been really grinding, and you've been a first choice player now for a minute now in this league. You think about what's in front of you as a player. how are you trying to continue to get better and master your craft so you can be the best that you can be? Because clearly you have an opportunity to represent, because you already have the United States, particularly with the World Cup. But even yourself as a young player still in this league, there's still goals for you to accomplish. So what do you focus in on that can make you that much better of a professional day in and day out?
Once you are who you are at a certain point, it can't get too much better. It's more how you develop physically, take care of your body, tactically, mentally, basically all that stuff around your technical abilities. I feel like that kind of, once you hit a certain point, I would say around my age, it kind of like who you are technically kind of sticks. So I really try to work on, the consistency of stretching and consistency of trying to stay healthy. And I try my best. I have a sweet tooth, but I try my best to.
What? Hey, you a gummy guy? You a
I'm
chocolate
an
guy?
everything
Like
guy.
what? You're an everything.
I love baking. I bring in
Oh, really?
desserts all the time, but I gotta chill with eating
Okay.
it myself. I just try to give it out to everyone else.
That's dope. What's your go-to dish right now when you're trying to bake something for the team and everyone in the facility? Like, what's your go-to that you know you're gonna kill it? If you have more than
Go-to,
one,
I mean, if I look at
yeah,
my fridge
please.
right now, I could probably make an apple pie, but
Okay,
yeah, go-to, it could be anything, honestly. Just a bunch of random stuff. I make my own recipes. I try not to look at recipes and make my own.
Yeah, yeah. I love to cook. I grew up around my mother, who was a big time chef and cook, and as the guys on the show know, I'm just becoming an old black woman. So I'm definitely down. I'm definitely down to cook a pecan pie, a cobbler, things like that. All the clubs I've always worked for, and I try to make sure that you can show the love. And I actually. My only sweet tooth is gummies. Everything else I'm pretty good on. But gummies will definitely make me feel guilty about how much I can eat in one sitting for sure, So, but we're gonna have to get you some bakeware for you, and when we connect again in person, maybe we can share some personal recipe favorites that we have as well. But George, really appreciate you hopping in and joining us here to cover new ground on the show. And it's not lost on us what you're doing. And it was so good to see you on the team of the match day. And obviously this year has been off to a great start. You got your first cap. And you're clearly a leader for CF Montreal, and I'm pretty confident that the best for you guys is ahead this season. So we wish you nothing but positivity, health. Congratulations on the pending nuptials as well. I know you have nothing but great things to say about your fiance, and I'm sure it works both ways because you're a top guy on and off the field. So George, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you down the road here on New Ground.
It was a pleasure being on, Allen, and yeah, appreciate it. It was really good. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate you. And if you like what you're listening to, what you're plugging into, you can follow us and find us on social media, on YouTube at New Ground Show. It's that time for us to step aside when we come back for the last time. We'll close up shop just like we always do with flowers. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to New Ground on Sirius XM FC. Putting a bow on a wonderful episode. We appreciate George Campbell, CF Montreal, U.S. men's national team defender, joining us, chopping it up. And certainly you learn something new all the time. We're going to have a bake-off, George and I, Jalil here. We're going to see who's better. I'm about to get my Instagram up. But my man, he swears he can cook better than me, so we'll see. I told him I'm becoming an old black woman like my mom, so he laughed at that.
We about to have a Betty Crocker bake-off between Allen and George.
We about to. That's right. If anyone's listening on the Food Network, we can make something happen. But speaking of making something happen, this time every show we give out our flowers. Last week I gave out mine to Marin LeBlanc, who has stepped in for just a moment here to coach the U18s in Marbella, Spain. A great opportunity for him. He got to the final last year with Philadelphia Union 2 and MLS Next Pro. We wish him all the best as he continues to carve out a great journey in the game. This week, I'm going to keep it on the bench, on the sideline, and I'm going to go to USL San Antonio FC head coach Carlos Llamosa. Carlos, perfect 4-0, top USL championship in terms of the entire overall standings, 2-time MLS Cup winner in DC, MLS Best 11 with Miami. Yes, Miami before Inter Miami FC back in 2001. They were the Fusion for you kids. You can YouTube it. You can Google it. And then ended up in a cool thing, Jalil, becoming a U.S. citizen back in 98, made just under 30 caps, 29 specifically for the U.S. men's national team. A real good guy, has been around the league, was in Portland not too long ago. Now the head coach for San Antonio FC. They are the top dogs in USL Championship so far. Perfect 4-0. My flowers go to Carlos Hermosa. Best of luck to him in San Antonio the rest of the way.
Hey, that's what's up. That's a good shout out. Shout out, Carlos. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
The San Antonio, keep bringing pride to the Lone Star State. For me, we've talked a lot about Sporting Kansas City on this episode. We've talked a lot about Peter Vermees. I'm going to stay in that club, and I'm going to stay in the vein of excellence. I mentioned this fine gentleman's name earlier in the show, and I'm giving my flowers to none other than Tony Meola. And the reason why is because Tony, as a lot of us have known and have come to understand, he recently suffered a health scare that shook a lot of us up to be
Facts.
real. And reaching out to Tony in that moment, a lot of us, felt our own mortality flash in front of our own eyes, right? And to now see him back on the airwaves, to hear him back on the airwaves is a blessing. It's also very refreshing to be able to work with a legend that is as humble as Tony and is as graceful as he is, and is as dedicated to his craft as a broadcaster as he is, because he's one of those players, former players, I should say, that is immortalized in many ways. For people that came up in my generation, we looked up to the Peter Vermeeses, the Tony Meolas, the Casey Kellers, the DeMarcus Beasleys, or whatever have you, and to still see them doing things at an extremely high level, it just makes you continue to fortify a mentality that is, if they are doing things where they wake up every single day to continue to try to be the best at what they do, you have zero excuse. And that's what I saw from Tony the first time we worked together at CBS. And that is what I continue to see, not only through his work now that I know what good broadcasting is, but every time we link up, he has a very, very calm and professional demeanor. So shout out to the big homie Tony Meola for being back healthy and blessing us with amazing grade A analysis.
I absolutely love that. You're always so good about making sure the right person gets your bouquet every week. And Tony is fantastic. And I think what I always try to remember is the posters I had in my room. And this is for the grown and the sexy, this image right here. But the U.S. men's national team, 1990 World Cup team photo at the Coliseum in Rome. This is like a World Cup photo. They did like a promotional photo at the Coliseum.
Where it was the whole team. You're talking about the
team.
whole,
the whole team, not just the 11, like the Rome Coliseum ahead of 90. And they were all like, they were wearing the white kits with the, I actually don't mind that vintage of kits. Actually, those were clean.
I had that joint in my room, but it was retro by the time I had it though, because I was born in '88.
Oh, that's when long hair was in. That's when like every black player I knew was trying to be like Jimmy Banks or Desmond Armstrong, and every other player was trying to have like the mullet like Ronaldo and all them dudes. Maybe you had the Bruce Murray joint, right? But I remember Peter been rocking that same crew cut since like people were folding up cigarettes in their sleeves. That's for sure.
Yep. This is fire. I had the 90 team, the 94 team, and then the Nigeria 94, and basically like all the the 96 Olympics Nigeria team when we won the Olympics. So like Kanu, JJ Okocha, Finidi George, all them, like Amukachi, Dosu was the goalkeeper, all the Baba Yaro, all them dudes, bro. Olise, all them. Like those are the posters. That was how like if I pull up that 94 US team, I didn't know all of those dudes at the time, but it's so wild because I remember looking through that photo and thinking like, all right, just based on vibe, which one of these dudes like got swag for real?
Mm-hmm.
And now like turning pro and like meeting these people, because a lot of them by the time I got into the league, Riverside wants to enter the picture automatically allow this time. I don't know what that means. Meeting a lot of them, because by the time I came into the league, they were either broadcasters or CSOs or whatever. Bro, like as a kid, your imagination is your intuition. You just don't know it yet, right? And like my imagination on a lot of these dudes, just based on fucking their team photo, was like kind of spot on for a lot of them, if I'm being honest.
What I will say to you is when we think about these young guns right now, the 22, 23-year-olds, the 21-year-olds, that's that class. Those were them dudes. They were them. That's why they've been around for so long, because they were so young when they were coming up, right? And what they were doing to fortify their legacy as pioneers is fantastic. So shout out to Tony, and we were so glad that he's back for sure. So well done, well played. As always, Jalil is always in the top 5v2 square. I'm usually 2 or 3 down in an earshot away. Usually. As always, New Ground is produced by executive producer Stefan Geraldo. Our New Ground team is the best in the business. Megan Fontenot, Krista Mann, our music director, Mason. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Our handle is at New Ground Show. A reminder, you can listen to our previous episodes on the SiriusXM app. For Jalil Anibaba, I'm Allen Hopkins Jr. We'll see you next week on New Ground on SiriusXM FC. As always, thanks for listening.